Hello, welcome to Learn Python in 30 days. I am Sabyasachi, faculty at Pixeltest. We are learning Python as it's used in many fields and industries: engineering, web development, machine learning, AI, data science, and more. So once you learn the Python fundamentals, you can grow into the job of your choice and massive salaries. Right? So Python is the first step. So let's begin. In today's Python in 30 days session, we are going to learn about Python syntax, basics, environment setup, and variables. Let's begin. Great. So I'd be sharing my screen. People who are joining us on our social channels, you can use our chat section to interact with us. Great. Yes. So now in today's syntax, we'll be covering, in this particular session, we'll be covering the basics of Python syntax. Okay. So before that, I would be willing to share, I would be sharing with you on how to set up your environment, right? Okay, great. So I would request you to go to your browser and open Google Colab, right? So let me introduce you to that, right? Sharing my screen here. I hope my screen is visible. So you would have to go and search for Colab. So when you search for Colab, so Colab is a way to work with Python, and this is a free offering from Google, and they also have a paid offering which is not required for our use case currently for this scope, right? So I'm going to open Google Colab, right? So based upon which account, this is how the interface of Colab looks like. And if at all you want to open it from any of your accounts, you can go ahead and open that, right? So once you do that, it will ask you to go ahead and open a new notebook, or you can even do that by doing that from file, right? So I'm going to click on file, new notebook, right? And let me go ahead and name the file. I'm going to say Python syntax, right? So now you can see this particular Colab file. This would require you to do something called connect. When you do connect, it will allocate a little RAM for your program. So what is the benefit of Colab here is you do not have to install any of the Python IDEs onto your system. You can go ahead and work from your browser itself. So that's the best part. So now you can see that we have connected, and there is a little RAM and disk allocated for our program runs, right? So great. So now if you go to this Python syntax, now you can see that I'm going to start. So let me just go ahead and do this. I'm just going to show you how it runs. So we're going to do our first statement, which is called the print statement. So you're going to write print, and within this parentheses or brackets, you're going to put quotations, right? So when you open these double quotes, or you can even use single quotes. So when you do that, you'll be able to print anything that you have written onto this interpreter. And when you click on this, it will go ahead and print that particular statement. So this is called a string. So whenever you include or enclose any text or any characters between these double quote, it becomes a string, right? So I'm going to write this as string. And whenever you use a pound or a hash symbol and then write anything after that, it becomes a comment, right? So when you run this, this does not get executed, right? So this is how a print statement works. So let me go ahead and first walk you through the basics, right? So I hope my screen is visible now. Yes. So the first statement that we are learning about is hello world, which we have just did it, right? So this is called the syntax. Syntax is nothing but the rules that are required for us to run any particular statement. So this particular statement, print hello world, requires us to follow these rules, right? So you without the double quotes or without the parentheses, if you try to run this, you would run into an error, right? So this is something that happens. So let me go ahead and share my screen and I'll show you that. Yes. Now you see this. If I'm going to not include a double quote here, you're going to run into an error. So it points you telling that EOL while scanning string literal, which means like you have to go ahead and put your double quote, right? It's towards the end of line. So it is very important for us to follow the syntax, right? So let's go ahead and understand more about it. So the print statement is the easiest and the most useful statement that you can use in your Python programs, right? So now this is how this works. If you are parallelly running along with me, I definitely encourage you to go ahead, open your own Google Colab and print your own first statement, right? So this is the law of any programmer, the first statement that anybody runs, right? Okay. So this is our first statement. Now let's go forward. Great. So we'll learn more about strings, right? So anything that you include within this print statements is going to be called as a string. Now you can see that, and you can even do something called an operation over strings by using the symbol plus, right? So you can do this where you say print learning Python is easy, and then you can even do print. You can have your first string in double quotes, then use the operator plus, and then use the second statement to combine both by an operator, which is plus here, right? Some few common errors that people do is mismatched quotes, like as I've shown, like if you have one quote and you did not have other quote, or you had a double quote and towards the end you had a single quote, that is going to be a problem, right? So let me go ahead and share it with you how you can do this, right? So now there is give me a second. Great. Now you can see that here I'm going to do the same here. I'm going to say I will, and then give a operator plus, and then I'm going to say is, right? So now if I'm going to run this, you can see that it came out as a single string. So this is what how you can include two different statements, do an operation over that, but we will see better ways to do the same thing. Right? Okay. So let's proceed forward. Great. So now if you see, we're going to learn a little more about variables, right? So now if we go towards variables, variables are nothing but uh, a variable is nothing but a word here which is useful for you to hold different types of data types, right? So variable is going to be similar to this particular syntax. You're going to name your variable. You can give any particular combination of numbers and strings, and then you can give an equal to sign and give the value of that variable, right? So let me go ahead and show you that. The variables come very handy. So you can go ahead, click on this plus code to bring in another uh, command line here. So where you can write here next statement, right? So I'm going to go ahead, say print numbers, right? So you can say print number, but before that, what you would be required to do is tell what is number. So you can say number equal to 99, right? So when you do that, you go ahead and print number. So you'll be able to print that particular number. So here I'm going to say, instead of number, I'm going to say number is 99, right? So now before earlier, I did not use the double quotes because that data type is number. And here now we have enclosed it within double quotes. If you run this, it becomes a string, right? So this is how you can see that a simple variable is able to print different types of data type, and the value of it can change. Now it could be 100, later it could be 101 or any other number, because you can vary the contents within that particular variable. Okay, great. So now this is about variables, and a variable can hold different types of data types, right? So I'm going to show you that. I'm going to say 99901. So now what this does is this makes it a floating variable or a decimal variable, right? So I'm going to run it. You can see that it got also printed. So how do you know which data type is this? So you can just say print, and before that variable, you can just say type of name of that variable. So when you do that, when you run it, so you can see that here the class of the variable is a float, and when you remove the decimals, it becomes an integer. And if you make it a string, it will be shown as class a string, right? So you can also do that. So I'm going to introduce you to one particular different type of data type, which we are going to learn about as we go further, right? So I'm going to start with a square bracket and say 4, right, with a comma between. So this is called a list. We'll be learning about list as we proceed forward. But when you run this, you can see that the class of this particular variable is list now, right? So a variable is something that can help you hold different data types. So you can always go ahead and work with them. Here we have worked with them in a print statement, but as we go forward, I'll also be able to show you can do a lot of operation over that, right? So now if you see, print statement can do a lot of other things also, apart from printing what is there in the contents of a variable, combination of string and variable. So now you can see that here I am going to go ahead and say 999 plus 1. Now you can see that the 999 plus 1 got printed, right? So 1000 got printed here. So you can do arithmetic also in there, right? So now I can say 999 into 10. So it's going to do that particular arithmetic, right? So you can do the arithmetic here, or you can do that here, right? So, and then print number. So this is just an introduction for you to know how to work with print statements and variables, right? So variable is nothing but is like a box or an envelope in which the contents of it can vary. Okay, great. So now let us move ahead towards our next concept. Now, arithmetic we have seen, you can do any arithmetic within a variable and go ahead and print that particular arithmetic, right? So there is something that we would also want to introduce, which is called a modulo operator, right? So let us go ahead and do that, right? With exercise. Now I'm going to share a screen here. Now I'm going to open a code cell and I'm going to say print 151 modulo 2. So what it does is it is going to divide 151 with 2 and give us the reminder of that particular result, right? So I'm going to do that. The resulting reminder is going to come here. So 150, 275 is 150 and 1 got reminder, right? So you can always go ahead and check if a number is divisible by any other number. If you see that if the reminder is 0, you know that it is divisible. If not, we know that it is not divisible by your number, right? So you can see that 49 is divisible by 7. So this is called the modulo operator. Great. So now you've learned a little bit of arithmetic that we can do here with Python. Let's go ahead. Now we have understood about comments. Anything that you put with a hash or a pound symbol and write text here, so that goes forward and becomes a comment, right? So now let's try to understand how to update any particular variable, right? So let me run with this example here. Sharing my screen. I can see that I'm going to open this code cell, paste it here. Now, if you see, we are creating one variable, naming that variable as fish in pond. Now, when you do that, we are defining a variable called fish in pond and giving it the value 50, right? So later what I'm going to do, I'm going to say we are starting to catch the fish, right? So when you do that, the process of catching fish has started, just to represent. And then we created another variable saying the number of fish caught is 10, right? So now there's another variable that got defined where we said the number of fish caught is 10. Now what we're going to do here is, what is the updated fish in pond right now, right? So now you can see that the fish in pond is the new fish in pond is the fish in pond that was there previously minus number of fish caught, right? So if I'm going to run this and then print the new variable fish in pond, you'll be able to see that now earlier it was 50. Now after catching fish, it got 40. Let's say if you've got number of fish caught is 15, total fish in pond is 35 right now. Great. So now that is how you update variables But updating variables is something that we do very often. So for that reason, there is even a shorthand notation for updating such variables. Now, what we do here is instead of always writing fish in pond equal to fish in pond minus number of fish caught, you can do something like fish in pond minus equal to. So what this does is fish in pond equal to fish in pond minus number of fish caught, right? So let's just say now we have caught 20 fish. I'm going to run this. You can see that this shorthand was really helpful for us to update variables, right? So this is also how you can update the same variables within the program, right? So we'll see later on how you can use the single variable. So you can use this particular type of operations. Let's say you are first calculating the grade of a student and working with each of the subjects summation, and the total score keeps on updating as he finishes each as the result of each subject comes up, right? So you can always keep updating variables. This is just an example to go ahead and understand this on a bigger scale, right? So this is what we have understood about updating variables. Now let us go ahead and understand more about numbers, right? So we have understood if at all there is no decimal, that is called an integer. If we have a decimal, that is going to be a floating number, right? So now if you have a number which it comes in this particular format, E2, right? So when this particular thing happens, this is nothing but e to the power, into 10 to the power 2, right? So let's go ahead and try to assess that also. So this is the scientific notation for a float. E is nothing but the power of 10, right? So let us go ahead and try to run that. You can see that opened a code cell, said float equal to 1.5 into, and I'm going to print float it, or it's possible that it is showed in the scientific notation only. So yeah, now you can see that it is 1.5 into 10 to the power 2, right? 10 to the power 2. This is what happened here. So this is a little bit of numbers. Now, if you can do a lot of things like division also, like how we did any arithmetic, you can do any division or numbers within the variable itself, right? So you can divide two variables also, right? So if at all you have, let's say number 1, which is 6, and the number 2, which is 2, you can divide number 1 by number 2. So this is a little bit of division, and multi-line strings are nothing but a way to write multiple lines of comments when you work with them, right? So this is a concept. Let me go ahead and show it. I'm going to open a cell. I'll show it to you. Now you can see that in this particular example. Okay, so this will not work. I'm going to say print. And here include this. Now you can see that 2 lines of strings got printed here, right? So this is how you can write a multi-line string by using 3 quotes, right? So if at all you do not want any string to be just there as a single line, you can include 3 lines, in 3 or more lines, 2 or more lines, by including 3 double quotes before and starting that particular string. Great. So we are coming closer to our conclusion for today's sessions, which is more about setup of collab and understanding different statements. Great. So now you can see that there is something also called a boolean, right? Boolean is nothing but true or false, right? So let me go ahead and show that, which will be something that we are going to use a lot when we learn more about conditionals, right? So I'm going to open a code cell. Now I'm going to say A. I'm going to create a variable. I'm going to say equal to true, right? So when you do this, okay, so let me go ahead and print A equal to true. Sorry. So you need to see that the first letter has to be T, has to be capital, and everything else has to be, small case, right? So now you can see now A is true. Now what we can do is we can say true or true. So when you do true or true, what is going to happen is it is going to get evaluated as true whenever you have or statement within the statement. You can always go ahead and see that, right? If one of them is true, then whole of the statement is executed as true. And if you have to, one of them is false, still it gets executed as true, right? So or statement works like that. And if at all there is an and, you require both of them to be true, right? So this is what a boolean is. And let me go ahead and show with a small example. So now this is called an if condition. I'm going to show an example. I'm saying if A is greater than 10, and then I'm going to give a particular colon leader. I'm going to say print A is greater than 10, right? So I'm going to do this, right? So now I'm going to first, before that, say A equal to 11. I'm going to run this. Now it printed A is greater than 10, right? So what happened is here, A greater than 10 got evaluated as true, right? So as long as a statement is true, whatever is that particular condition gets executed, right? So if any condition gets executed as false, it will not run, right? So let us go ahead and do that. If A is greater than 10, now if A was 9 to run it, it will not run because this got evaluated as false, right? So this is how you work with booleans. We'll cover more of this in our upcoming sessions. Now, tomorrow, we are going to learn in our next session, we are going to learn more about working with conditions, right? So we're going to work with more conditions, date and time, and we're going to work with functions as we proceed forward, right? So thank you so much for joining in today, and I hope you have a very good learning, right? So as we proceed forward, you'll be learning more fundamentals and become better at Python program. Thank you so much.